Well, good morning. Thank you for joining me for morning manna. Looks like we have a break in the rain today, so that's always encouraging. And I make that comment because today we'll have just a verse, especially mentioned at the end, just for well, not just, but especially for Oregonians. So that's good. So Job chapter 5. And anytime we go to Job, it's always going to be interesting. Of course, all of Scripture is, but Job has its own curiosities towards it. And in Job chapter 5, verse 1, well, let me just read where we're headed to eventually, but I'm not going to tip my verse off yet. But verse 9 from Job 5, it's God who does great things and unsearchable, marvelous things without number. That's where we're headed this morning. But let's backtrack a little bit in Job chapter 5. That was verse 9. But in Job 1, we find Eliphaz. Now, he's one of Job's counselors. And Job's an interesting book because these counselors, Eliphaz being one of them, they have a lot of good advice, but some of their advice is really off. And so it's kind of tricky. It's a book that I have to read always very slowly, or the chapters or the verses I read in it or the paragraphs, I have to read very slowly to figure out. Sometimes it's even confusing who is speaking. And and then the counsel, Job's counselors, some of their counsel, like mentioned, is good. Others is off course, and it goes off course because these friends of Job, they put God in a box, if you would. They may not say that, but they have formulas where God is to fit nicely. Pardon me, in their formulas. And sometimes they're speaking, or we see written, it's a little bit cynical or sarcastic towards Job. And this is one of those cases in Job 5, verse 1, where there's a bit of sarcasm. And Eliphaz says in verse 1, call out now, is there anyone who will answer you? And to which one of the holy ones will you turn? There's a real tone of cynicism there towards Job from Eliphaz. Because Eliphaz realized that Job does acknowledge God, and he's always looking for God in this situation, and he can't quite figure God out. And Eliphaz, in his formula, has God all nicely figured out, and so forth. But Job is looking for God as, Hebrews 7:19 gives a very nice description in calling God a better hope. Also from Hebrews, again, that's a reference, an Old Testament reference that Hebrews declares in 7:19. In Hebrews 11, verse 10, speaking of Abraham, he was one who was looking for a city who had foundations. Its builder and maker is God. This tent dweller was looking for God. Now we see him, because we're New Testament saints, you and I are, we see him as evidenced in Jesus Christ, who is God, who is God incarnate. So we don't struggle like Job or Abraham or Eliphaz did. But Eliphaz, he's being a little bit snarky here, we might say. But here he speaks the truth in Hebrews 5, verse 7. Man is born to trouble as the sparks fly upward. That's like Peter says in 1 Peter 4:12, where he talks about that. Let me read it here to you. My mind just went blank there on that. But in 1 Peter 4, verse 12, beloved, do not think it strange concerning the fiery trial, which is to try you, as though some strange thing happened. And he tells us to rejoice, and he goes on in that. So trials, man is born to trouble. Peter says, don't think it's strange concerning trials that come towards you. So next time you're sitting by a campfire, so maybe you're Josh Ellis out in Yamhill, and you're sitting there and you see sparks. Well, let this remind you of that. But as for me, Job 5, verse 8, I would seek God. And that's a truth there. As for me, I would seek God. Now the motive, Lamentations 3:32. Why do we seek God? The multitude of his mercies. That's a great reason right there. And to God, I would commit my cause. We talked about that yesterday, not from this verse, but from Proverbs 16, verse 3. You commit your way to the Lord, and he'll establish your thoughts. That's good counsel right there. And then in verse 9, now we're honing in on where our stakes are driven this morning. As to God, I would commit my cause, who does great things and unsearchable, marvelous things without number. Let me read that again. God, who does great things and unsearchable, marvelous things without number. Can I go to the next book to the right in our Bible, Psalm, and it would be the 40th Psalm, Psalm chapter 40, or the 40th Psalm would be better stated. And it's a very well-known Psalm, Psalm 40 is, because of verses 1 and 2 and 3, those opening verses. But verse 5, look at the words of David here. Many, O Lord my God, are your wonderful works, which you have done. That's a great pause right there, isn't it? And your thought towards us, keeping going, Psalm 40, verse 5, cannot be recounted to you in order. If I would declare and speak of them, they are more than can be numbered. That's like Job says, or Eliphaz in Job 5, verse 9. God, who does great things, unsearchable, marvelous things without number. In that Psalm 40, though, I want to draw our attention in verse 5 there, because David says, they cannot be recounted to you, God's thoughts towards us, in order. What's that phrase mean? Well, when you take that phrase apart, it kind of lines up, if you would, with Romans 8:28. All things work together for the good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose. That is, this recounting to you, or they cannot be recounted to you in order, is that we can't see all tied together. We can't figure it out. We couldn't count it correctly because our minds are too finite. Where God has infinite ways to work and to tie things nicely together. He works all things. And David here is acknowledging that his thought towards us cannot be recounted to you in order. If I would declare and speak of them, they are more than can be numbered, more than the stars, more than the sand of the sea. It's an infinite number for us to even consider his greatness and his goodness towards us. So that's a great consideration this morning. Let me just read Psalm 40, verse 5 again. Many, O Lord my God, are your wonderful works which you have done. Your thought towards us cannot be recounted to you in order. If I would declare and speak of them, they are more than can be numbered. Now, concluding verse, back in Job 5, and this is just for Oregonians. Verse 10, he gives rain on the earth and sends water on the fields. These last couple of days, there have been some real Donnybrooks. The fields, it appears to me, many of them are flooded. The rain just kind of keeps coming and coming. So again, but to remember, these scriptures are written to those who live in the arid Middle East, where rain is so desired. And it's him who's the giver of all good things. So when you see the rain, when the fields are flooding, let it remind you of this instruction from Eliphaz to Job, that it's God who does marvelous things without number. He gives rain to the earth, sends water onto the fields. God bless you this day. And the rain's coming back, I think. So enjoy this day and look for his coming. He's coming soon. Maranatha.